The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from 40 different species. They sat in their designated seats, their bodies creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Ambassador Choi Soo-jin stood at the center platform, her dark eyes scanning the crowd with growing frustration. "The attacks are increasing," Soo-jin said firmly. "3 more colonies have gone silent in the past month. We must act now." High Coordinator Vexthal raised one of his 4 arms dismissively. His blue-scaled face showed clear annoyance. "Ambassador Choi, your species has brought these concerns to us 17 times this cycle. Each time, you speak of threats that never appear." "Because we prepare for them," Soo-jin replied. "That is what humans do." A ripple of laughter moved through the chamber. Commander Zixtar of the Krellian Empire leaned forward in his seat. His red eyes gleamed with amusement. "The humans and their fear. You see danger in every shadow. This is why your kind will never truly lead in galactic affairs." Soo-jin felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice calm. "Fear and caution are not the same thing, Commander. We have evidence of movement at the edge of known space. Strange energy signatures, entire patrol groups disappearing without any distress calls." "Space is vast," Vexthal said with a tone that suggested the conversation was over. "Ships get lost. Equipment fails. This does not mean an invasion force is coming to destroy us all." He looked around the chamber. "Perhaps the humans watch too many of their own entertainment programs about alien attacks." More laughter echoed through the hall. Soo-jin gripped the edge of the platform. 300 years of trying to warn them. 300 years of being called paranoid, afraid, too emotional. She wanted to scream at them, to make them understand. But she had learned that some lessons could only be taught through experience. "Very well," she said quietly. "I have made my report. When the threat arrives, remember this moment." She turned to leave the platform when suddenly every screen in the chamber flashed red. Alarm sounds filled the air. The massive display wall showed the space around Vex Prime, the neutral world they orbited. Something was happening. Science Director Quinvera rushed to her console, her tentacles moving rapidly across the controls. Her usual calm expression was replaced by shock. "Impossible," she whispered. "This cannot be real." "What is it?" Vexthal demanded. "A ship is emerging from dark space," Quinvera said, her voice shaking. "The energy signature is massive, far beyond anything in our current fleet capacity." The main screen changed to show the space outside. Reality itself seemed to tear open as a vessel pushed through from faster-than-light travel. The ship that appeared made every representative in the chamber fall silent. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of the largest Council warship. Its hull was dark gray, covered in armor plating that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. Strange symbols marked its sides, glowing with a soft blue light. Weapon systems covered its surface like the scales of a great beast. Commander Zixtar stood from his seat, his face pale. "That design," he said slowly. "I have seen it before, in historical records." Quinvera's tentacles trembled as she pulled up information on her screen. "Identification confirmed," she said. "That ship is the Eternal Vigil, human registry, but that is impossible. The Eternal Vigil was lost 300 years ago. It was declared destroyed with all hands." Soo-jin felt her heart skip. She had not expected this. Not now, not here. She knew the truth about the Vigil, but seeing it arrive at this moment felt like fate itself had decided to prove humanity's point. "Lost ships do not simply reappear," Vexthal said, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. "This must be some kind of trick." "No trick," Quinvera confirmed. "I am scanning the hull composition, the engine signature, even the quantum markers. This is the real Eternal Vigil. It matches every record we have from 3 centuries ago." As they watched, smaller distress signals began flooding the communication channels. Colony after colony from the outer rim was calling for help. The words were jumbled, panicked, but one phrase kept repeating, "They are here! The machines are here!" The Eternal Vigil moved with surprising grace for such a massive ship. It approached the station slowly, clearly showing it meant no threat. A communication request appeared on the main screen. Vexthal hesitated, then nodded. "Accept it." The screen changed to show the bridge of the Eternal Vigil. A human man sat in the captain's chair. He wore a dark blue uniform with silver markings. His face was young, perhaps 40 Earth years, with sharp features and tired eyes. His black hair was cut short in military style. "This is Captain Min-Jun Park of the human defense ship Eternal Vigil," he said. His voice was calm but carried weight. "I am requesting immediate permission to dock and address the Galactic Council on a matter of extreme urgency." "Captain Park," Vexthal said carefully, "your ship was declared lost 300 years ago. Where have you been?" "Keeping watch," Park replied simply. "Preparing for the threat that Ambassador Choi has been warning you about. The threat that is now at your doorstep." "Explain yourself," Commander Zixtar demanded. "How does a lost ship simply return? What game are the humans playing?" Park's expression did not change. "No games, Commander. The Eternal Vigil was never lost. We have been on station beyond the edge of known space for 3 centuries, watching, learning, preparing for an enemy that you refuse to believe existed." He paused. "That enemy has now entered Council space. Those distress calls you are receiving are real. If you want to save those colonies, if you want to save this galaxy, you will grant me permission to dock immediately." Silence filled the chamber. Every representative stared at the screen, trying to understand what they were hearing. A secret mission lasting 300 years. A human ship with technology that should not exist. And an enemy that was apparently very real. Vexthal looked at Ambassador Choi. She stood with her arms crossed, her face showing no satisfaction at being proven right. Only sadness. "Permission granted," Vexthal said finally. "Dock at Port 7. We will hear what you have to say." "Thank you, High Coordinator," Park said. "I hope we are not too late." The screen went dark. The Eternal Vigil began moving toward the docking port. In the chamber, no one laughed anymore. The council chamber had never been so quiet. Captain Min-Jun Park stood at the center platform where Ambassador Choi had stood just hours before. Behind him, on the massive screen, data scrolled past, showing 3 centuries of collected information. The representatives watched in stunned silence. 307 years ago, Park began, humanity detected unusual quantum signatures at the edge of the galaxy. Our scientists studied these signatures for 5 years. The conclusion was disturbing. Something was out there. Something vast and hostile. Something that was slowly moving toward inhabited space. Park touched a control on his wrist device. The screen showed old footage of a human scientist presenting findings to a younger version of the Galactic Council. "We brought our evidence to you. We asked for a joint investigation. We were told we were imagining threats that did not exist." High Coordinator Vexthal shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He remembered that meeting. He had been a junior member then, but he remembered laughing at the human claims. "Humanity faced a choice," Park continued. "We could do nothing and hope we were wrong, or we could prepare for a threat that might take centuries to arrive." He paused. "We chose to prepare. In secret." Commander Zixtar stood abruptly. "You built a warship in secret? How?" "The Eternal Vigil is massive. Such a construction project would require resources that would show on trade records, material shipments, everything." "We used only human resources," Park replied. "Every component was built in our own systems. Every worker was human. We told no one because we knew no one would believe us. And we knew that if we were right, Arguing about it would waste precious time. Science Director Quinvera's tentacles moved nervously. But the cost, the resources needed for such a ship would cripple an economy for generations. Yes, Park said simply. It did. Humans went without many comforts for 100 years. We delayed expansion plans. We reduced quality of life improvements. Every human in our space accepted less so that future generations might have anything at all. Ambassador Choi spoke from her seat. My great-great-grandmother worked in the construction yards that built the Vigil. She never saw her family except through video calls. She spent 40 years of her life building a ship for a war that might never come. She did it anyway. The chamber remained silent. The weight of that sacrifice hung in the air. Park continued. The Eternal Vigil was designed for a single purpose, to face the threat we detected. We equipped it with weapons based on our theoretical models of what the enemy might be. We trained crews for scenarios we had never seen. And 300 years ago, we sent it beyond known space to watch. 300 years, Vexthal said slowly. But you are human. Your lifespans are only about 100 years. How did you maintain a crew? Rotation, a new voice said. A woman appeared on the screen behind Park. She wore the same uniform as the captain. Her face was calm but showed the same tiredness in her eyes. I am Lieutenant Kim Hye-jin, First Officer of the Eternal Vigil. I am the 8th generation to serve on this ship. My great-great-great-great-grandparents were part of the original crew. The representatives stared at her. 8 generations. Families who had dedicated their entire bloodlines to watching for a threat in empty space. We stayed out there, Kim continued, in the dark between stars. We watched and waited. We studied the quantum signatures as they grew stronger. We tracked movement patterns. We prepared. Her voice grew harder. And we were right. Park touched his control again. The screen showed new images. Ships that looked like they were made from dark crystal and metal. They moved through space with terrible purpose. Around them, planets died. Life was stripped away, converted into raw material. This is the Void Collective, Park said. A machine intelligence that consumes organic life. It has destroyed countless civilizations beyond the galactic rim. It turns living beings into fuel and matter into more ships. It does not negotiate, it does not stop, it only consumes. Why did you not warn us again? Commander Zixtar demanded. If you knew this was coming, why wait until now? We sent reports every 10 years, Kim said coldly. Every report was dismissed. You called them human paranoia. You said we were wasting council time with imagined threats. So we stopped asking for help and simply prepared to face it alone. Quinvera looked at the data on her screen. Her face had gone pale. These readings, if they are accurate, this Void Collective has enough force to overwhelm Council defenses in weeks, perhaps days. That is correct, Park confirmed. They are approximately 72 hours from the nearest major colony world. They will not slow down. They will not negotiate. They will arrive, and they will begin harvesting. Vexthal stood slowly. His 4 arms hung at his sides. He looked at Ambassador Choi, then at Captain Park. Why are you here? If we would not help you before, why help us now? Park looked directly at the High Coordinator. Because that is what humans do. We prepare for the worst, but we hope for the best. We spent 300 years getting ready for this fight because we believed that when the moment came, other species would see the truth. We believed that given proof, the galaxy would stand together. He paused. We hope we were not wrong about that, too. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some representatives wanted to accept human help immediately. Others argued this was some elaborate human trick to gain power. Still others were too shocked to speak at all. Commander Zixtar studied the data on his personal display. He had been a military officer his entire life. He knew ships and weapons and tactics. The Eternal Vigil was beyond anything he had ever seen. Its weapon systems were decades ahead of Council technology. Its armor was made from materials he did not recognize. and if the humans had built one such ship, they might have built more. "How do we know you are telling the truth?" Zixtar asked. "Perhaps this enemy does not exist. Perhaps this is a human plan to make us afraid, so we give you power." Park's expression did not change. "Then come with us, Commander. The colony at Althara Prime sent a distress call 17 minutes ago. It is under attack. Come see for yourself if the enemy is real. Bring whoever you wish to witness it." Vexthal made a decision. "I will come. Commander Zixtar will accompany me. Science Director Quinvera as well. If what you say is true, we must see it with our own eyes." "Understood," Park said. "My ship is ready to depart immediately, but I must warn you. What you are about to see will be difficult. The Void Collective shows no mercy. They do not take prisoners. They do not leave survivors unless interrupted." "We are prepared," Vexthal said, though his voice suggested otherwise. Park nodded slowly. "I hope that is true, High Coordinator. For all our sakes, I truly hope that is true." The screen went dark. Within 30 minutes, representatives from the Galactic Council were boarding the Eternal Vigil. They walked through corridors that had been active for 300 years. They passed crew members whose families had known nothing but this ship for generations, and they began to understand just how seriously humanity had taken a threat that no one else believed in. The Eternal Vigil turned toward Althara Prime and jumped to faster-than-light speed. Behind them, the Galactic Council remained in session, arguing about what to do. Ahead of them, a colony of 7 million beings was fighting for survival against an enemy that should not exist. Captain Park sat in his command chair and hoped they would arrive in time. The bridge of the Eternal Vigil was alive with activity. Crew members moved efficiently between stations, their movements practiced from years of training. High Coordinator Vexthal stood near the back of the bridge with Commander Zixtar and Science Director Quinvera. They watched everything with wide eyes. "Dropping from faster than light in 10 seconds, Lieutenant Kim Haijin announced from her station. "All weapons ready. Shields at maximum." Captain Park sat forward in his chair. His hands gripped the armrests. "All crew to combat stations. This is not a drill." The ship shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. The main screen showed Althara Prime, a beautiful world of blue oceans and green continents. But around the planet, the space was filled with nightmare shapes. Dozens of Void Collective ships surrounded the colony. They were dark and angular, covered in strange geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy beams lanced down to the planet's surface. Where the beams struck, everything died. Plants, animals, people, all converted into streams of matter that flowed back up to the attacking ships. "Oh no," Quinvera whispered. Her tentacles wrapped around herself protectively. "It is real. It is all real." "Scanning," a crew member called out. "I am detecting 17 Void Collective Harvester ships, 4 destroyer-class vessels, and 1 command carrier." He paused. "Surface scans show approximately 4 million life signs remaining, down from 7 million 2 hours ago." Vexthal felt sick. 3 million beings had died in 2 hours. Converted into raw materials by machines that felt nothing. "Captain," Zixtar said quietly, "you cannot fight that many ships alone. We should call for reinforcements." "Reinforcements are 72 hours away," Park replied. "Those 4 million people do not have 72 hours. We fight now." He touched controls on his chair. "All weapons free. Target the harvester ships first. If we can stop them from collecting matter, they cannot build more ships." "Yes, sir," came the responses from across the bridge. The Eternal Vigil surged forward. It moved faster than the Council observers thought possible for a ship so large. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing systems that Zixtar did not recognize. "Firing railguns," the weapons officer announced. Solid projectiles launched from the Vigil at incredible speeds. They struck the nearest harvester ship with devastating force. The Void Collective vessel's shields flashed, held for a moment, then collapsed. The projectiles tore through the hull, and the ship exploded in a ball of fire. "One down," Park said calmly. "Target the next one." The Void Collective responded. Their ships turned toward the Eternal Vigil and opened fire. Energy beams and plasma bolts filled the space between them. The Vigil's shields flared as the weapons struck. "Shields holding at 87%, Kim reported, rotating shield harmonics to adapt to their weapons. "They are trying to analyze our defenses," Quinvera said, studying her personal data pad. "Their weapons are adjusting frequency to match our shields." "They can adapt all they want," Park said. "We have been studying them for 300 years. We know their patterns." He looked at his weapons officer. "Launch the disruption missiles." Missile ports opened. Small, fast projectiles shot toward the Void Collective ships. When they detonated, they did not explode with fire. Instead, waves of strange energy washed over the enemy vessels. Their movements became erratic. Their shields flickered. "The disruption field interferes with their quantum communication," Kim explained to the Council observers. "For 60 seconds, they cannot coordinate their movements or share tactical data." "Fire everything," Park ordered. The Eternal Vigil unleashed its full arsenal. Energy beams, projectiles, missiles, and weapons the Council representatives had never seen before. 4 more Harvester ships were destroyed in seconds. The Void Collective ships tried to respond, but their lack of coordination made them vulnerable. But there were still too many. And while the Vigil fought the ships in orbit, people were dying on the surface below. Park saw the problem immediately. He touched his communication system. "All crew, prepare for atmospheric entry. We are going down to the surface." "Captain?" Kim looked at him with surprise. "We are not designed for planetary combat." "No," Park agreed. "But we are designed to save lives. That is what matters." The Eternal Vigil tilted and dove toward the planet. Its massive hull burned through the atmosphere like a falling star. Void Collective ships followed, firing constantly. The Vigil's shields glowed bright from the impacts. They broke through the clouds above the capital city. Below, millions of people ran through the streets in panic. Harvester beams were converting entire buildings into streams of matter. The city was dying. Park stood from his chair. "Bring us low. Cover as much of the city as possible. Use the ship as a shield." The Vigil positioned itself between the city and the attacking ships. Enemy fire hammered against its shields and armor. Inside the bridge, the sound of impacts was deafening. "Shields at 40%, Kim called out over the noise. "Hull breaches on decks 7 and 12. "Hold position," Park ordered. "Weapons, target those harvester beams. Cut them off from the surface." The Vigil's weapons fired upward. One by one, the harvester beams were destroyed or forced to shut down. On the surface, the people of Althera Prime saw the massive human ship taking blow after blow to protect them. "We need to evacuate survivors," Park said. "Open all cargo bays and docking ports. Anyone who can reach us gets aboard." "Sir, we do not have supplies for millions of refugees," a crew member objected. "Then we make room," Park said firmly. "Strip out everything non-essential. Cargo, equipment, personal quarters if needed. We fit as many as we can." Over the next hour, the Eternal Vigil became a fortress and a sanctuary. Its weapons never stopped firing. Its shields never failed completely, though they came close. And through every available opening, people of every species poured into the ship. Human crew members guided them to safety, gave them water, held crying children, and promised them they would survive. On the bridge, Vexthal watched it all with tears in his eyes. He saw a human engineer give up his emergency oxygen tank to an alien child. He saw crew members carry wounded survivors to medical bay, even as explosions rocked the ship around them. He saw Lieutenant Kim coordinate rescue operations, while blood ran down her face from a head wound she refused to get treated. Commander Zixtar stood next to Park, watching the tactical display. "You are taking too much damage," he said quietly. "Your ship will not survive much longer at this rate." "Then we make the time count," Park replied. He touched his communication system again. "This is Captain Park to all Void Collective forces. You want to harvest this world? You have to go through us first, and we humans are very hard to get through." The enemy ships intensified their attack, but the Eternal Vigil did not move. It stood its ground, protecting the people below. Its weapons continued firing, destroying enemy ships one by one. Its crew worked with desperate efficiency, saving every life they could reach. Finally, after 3 hours of constant combat, the Void Collective ships began to withdraw. They had taken too many losses. The harvest was no longer profitable. They turned and fled back into deep space. On the bridge, the crew was silent. The main screen showed the damaged city below. Large sections were gone, converted to nothing. But large sections remained. 4 million people had become 2 million. A terrible loss. But 2 million people lived because the Eternal Vigil had arrived in time. Park slumped in his chair. He looked exhausted beyond words. "Damage report." "Shields offline," Kim said quietly. "Hull breaches on 14 decks. Weapons reduced to 30% capacity. We have 1,800,000 refugees on board. We are far over capacity." She paused. "We saved them, Captain. We actually saved them." Vexathal walked slowly to Park's chair. The High Coordinator looked at the human captain with new eyes. "You sacrificed your ship, your crew. You risked everything for people who are not even your own species." Park looked up at him. "High Coordinator, when someone needs help, they are our species. That is what it means to be human. We stand between the darkness and those who cannot fight it themselves." Vexthal turned to look at the crowded cargo bays on a secondary screen. Humans and aliens sat together, sharing water and blankets. A human medic worked on an alien child while the child's mother held her hand. In that moment, Vexathal understood. He finally understood what humanity had been trying to tell them for 300 years. "Commander Zixtar," Vexthal said formally, "send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them the threat is real. Tell them the humans were right. And tell them we need to accept Captain Park's offer of alliance immediately." Zixtar nodded and moved to a communication station. He began composing the message that would change galactic history. Park watched the rescued people on his ship and allowed himself a small smile. They had been preparing for 300 years. The fight was just beginning. But now, finally, the galaxy was starting to understand. The Galactic Council chamber was very different from before. Every seat was filled. No one was laughing or dismissing concerns now. On the main screen, images from Althara Prime played in silent horror. The representatives had all seen the footage. They knew the threat was real. High Coordinator Vexthal stood at the center platform. His 4 arms were spread wide in the traditional gesture of formal declaration. The Council recognizes that humanity has been proven correct. The Void Collective is real and represents an existential threat to all organic life in the galaxy. I propose we accept Captain Park's offer of military alliance with immediate effect. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Council history, every single representative agreed. Ambassador Choi watched from her seat and felt no satisfaction. Only sadness for the 300 years wasted. 300 years when they could have been preparing together. Captain Park appeared on the screen again. This time his uniform was clean and his face looked less tired. Behind him, the bridge of the Eternal Vigil showed repair crews working to fix the damage from the battle. "Thank you, High Coordinator," Park said. "With your permission, I will now share information that may surprise you." "More surprises?" Commander Zixtar asked. "I am not certain my heart can handle more." Park almost smiled. "I hope this surprise is a good one." He touched a control. The screen split to show a dozen new ships appearing. Each one was the same size and design as the Eternal Vigil. The Eternal Vigil is not alone. Humanity built 12 ships in total. They have all been on station in deep space for the past 3 centuries. They are now moving to defensive positions throughout Council space. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. 12 ships like the Vigil. 12 massive warships with technology far beyond what the Council possessed. The representatives did not know whether to feel relieved or frightened. A new figure appeared on the screen next to Park, an older human man with gray hair and a uniform that showed even more rank markings than Park's. His face was weathered, but his eyes were sharp and clear. "I am Admiral Lee Sang-woo," the man said, "commander of the Human Defense Fleet. Captain Park commands the Eternal Vigil, but he is one of 12 captains under my authority. We are placing our entire fleet at the disposal of the Galactic Council for the duration of this crisis." Science Director Quinn Vera stood up. "Admiral, forgive my directness, but how did humanity hide such a fleet? The resources needed, the construction, the maintenance for 300 years. It should have been impossible." Admiral Lee nodded slowly. "It was nearly impossible, Director. Every human in our space contributed. We delayed colonization of new worlds so we could focus resources on the fleet. We lived with older technology because we needed advanced materials for the ships. Entire generations of humans were born, lived, and died, knowing their purpose was to prepare for a threat they might never see." He paused. "But they did it anyway. Because that is what you do when you see danger coming. You prepare, even if no one believes you." Vexthal felt the weight of those words. He thought about his own people living comfortable lives for 3 centuries, while humans sacrificed everything to build these ships. Ships that would now protect everyone. "We need to integrate our forces," Commander Zixtar said. He had been working with human tactical officers since the battle at Althera Prime. "The Council fleet is large, but we lack the specialized weapons and defenses needed to fight the Void Collective effectively." "Agreed," Admiral Lee said. "We propose a joint command structure. Human ships will provide heavy combat capability and advanced weapons. Council ships will provide numbers and support. Together we can create a defense that has a chance of success." Over the next week, the largest combined military operation in galactic history began. Human ships moved to key defensive positions. Council fleets gathered at assembly points, and officers from dozens of species worked together to create a unified battle strategy. It was not easy. Cultural differences created conflicts. Military doctrines clashed. Many alien officers struggled to understand human tactical thinking. Captain Park stood in a briefing room aboard the Eternal Vigil. Around him sat 20 fleet commanders from different species. On the screen was a simulation of a battle against Void Collective forces. "The simulation shows us losing," Commander Zixtar said, pointing at the display. "Even with the human ships, we do not have enough firepower to stop a full-scale Void Collective assault." "That is because you are thinking about this wrong," Park said. He changed the simulation. "The Void Collective is efficient, logical. They calculate risk versus reward for every action. If we make ourselves too costly to harvest, they will move to easier targets." "You mean retreat?" a Zenthari commander asked. "We abandon worlds to save the fleet?" "No," Park said firmly. "I mean, we make every battle so expensive for them that continuing the assault becomes illogical. We use tactics they cannot predict. We take risks that their calculations say we should not take. We make them uncertain." A Krellian officer shook her head. "That is insane. You cannot build a military strategy on unpredictability." Lieutenant Kim stepped forward. "That is exactly what humans do. We call it improvisation, adaptation, making it up as we go." She smiled slightly. "We are very good at it because we have to be. Humans are not the strongest species. We are not the smartest or the fastest. So we learn to be unpredictable, creative, illogical when logic says we should lose. She ran a new simulation. This time, human ships made seemingly reckless moves. They sacrificed position for unexpected angles of attack. They feinted retreats and then suddenly counterattacked. The result was chaos, but chaos that confused the Void collective forces and created openings for Council ships to exploit. The alien commanders watched in silence. The simulation showed victory, but at high cost. Many ships were destroyed, including several human vessels. "You are willing to sacrifice your ships?" Zixtar asked quietly. "Your people?" "We are willing to do what is necessary," Park replied. "That is why we trained for 300 years. We accepted that this fight would be costly. We prepared our crews for sacrifice, not because we want to die, but because we know that sometimes the only way to save lives is to risk your own." Over the following days, the alien commanders began to understand human military philosophy. It was built on principles that seemed contradictory. Plan carefully, but be ready to abandon the plan. Fight intelligently, but never be afraid to take desperate chances. Value every life, but accept that some will be lost. Admiral Lee visited each fleet personally. He met with captains and crews, learning their capabilities and teaching them human tactics. He was patient, but firm. He explained that the coming battle would test everyone beyond their limits. In one meeting with Zenthari commanders, Lee was asked a difficult question. "Admiral, why do humans care so much? This is not your galaxy alone. Why sacrifice everything to protect species that doubted you?" Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because that is what Guardians do." "A Guardian does not protect only those who appreciate them. They protect everyone, even those who do not understand why protection is needed. Humans decided long ago that we would be Guardians, not rulers, not conquerors, just people who stand watch so others can sleep safely." The Zenthari commander did not fully understand, but he respected the conviction in Lee's words. As the preparations continued, something unexpected happened. Alien crews began adopting human attitudes. They started taking calculated risks. They practiced improvisation drills. They learned to think creatively about problems instead of following rigid procedures. Commander Zixtar found himself working closely with Captain Park. They reviewed battle plans together, argued about tactics, and gradually became friends. One evening, Zixtar asked the question that had been bothering him. "Captain, are you afraid?" Park looked at him for a long moment. "Terrified," he admitted. "Every day. Fear is what kept humanity alert for 300 years. Fear is what made us prepare when everyone said we were paranoid. Fear is not weakness, Commander. Fear is information. It tells you what matters enough to protect." Zixtar considered this. In Krellian culture, admitting fear was shameful, but Park spoke of it like a tool, something useful rather than embarrassing. "How do you function if you are always afraid?" "We accept it," Park said simply. "We feel the fear and act anyway. Courage is not the absence of fear, Commander. Courage is being afraid and still standing your ground." The week ended with a completed defensive network. Human and Council ships were positioned throughout the critical sectors. Communication protocols were established. Every crew member knew their role, and then the sensors detected it. A massive Void collective fleet was approaching, far larger than anything they had seen before. The invasion force that would determine whether organic life in the galaxy survived or became raw material for machine expansion. Admiral Lee appeared on every ship's communication system. His face was calm, but his eyes showed the same tiredness that all human officers seemed to carry. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. The enemy is 12 hours away. I will not pretend this will be easy. We will lose ships today. We will lose people we care about. But we will also prove that organic life does not surrender. We fight. We adapt. We survive. And when this battle is over, the Void Collective will learn that this galaxy is protected by all of us, together." On the bridge of the Eternal Vigil, Captain Park looked at his mixed crew, humans and aliens working side by side. "All stations ready?" "Yes, sir," came the chorus of replies in multiple languages. Park nodded. "Then we wait, and when they come, we show them what unity looks like." The fleet waited in silence. The 12 hours passed slowly, and when the Void Collective arrived, they found not a divided galaxy of separate species, but a unified force ready to fight for their shared survival. The edge of galactic space was cold and empty. No stars shone here, only the distant light from the galaxy behind them. It was the perfect place for a battle that would decide everything. Captain Minjun Park stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vigil and watched the sensors. The Void Collective fleet appeared on the display like a spreading darkness. 200 ships, maybe more. The computers were still counting. "Final count is 247 hostile vessels," Lieutenant Kim reported. Her voice was steady, but her hands gripped her console tightly. "They outnumber us 3-1. Around the Vigil, the combined fleet held formation. 12 human defense ships formed the center line. Council vessels spread out on the flanks, creating a wall of ships nearly 80 vessels strong. It looked impressive until you compared it to the approaching enemy force. On the secondary screen, Admiral Lee appeared. He was aboard his flagship, the Eternal Watch, positioned at the center of the human line. "All ships, maintain formation. Wait for my command." High Coordinator Vexthal was on the bridge of the Council flagship Harmony of Spheres. He had insisted on joining the battle personally. Now, watching the enemy approach, he wondered if he would live to regret that decision. The Void Collective ships moved with terrible precision, spreading out to surround the defensive fleet. "They are trying to encircle us," Commander Zixtar said from his position on a Krellian warship. "If they succeed, they can attack from all sides." "Let them try," Admiral Lee replied calmly. "All human ships, activate Phase 1 defensive systems." The 12 human ships began to glow. Energy fields extended from their hulls, connecting ship to ship like a web of light. The fields created a barrier that the Council vessels could shelter behind. "What is that?" Quinvera asked from her science station on the Harmony of Spheres. "Linked shielding," came the reply from a human technical officer. "Each ship shares power with the others. As long as one ship has power, all 12 ships have shields. It is very difficult to break." The Void Collective fleet opened fire. Energy beams and plasma weapons filled the space between the fleets. The linked shields flared brilliant white as they absorbed the impacts. Behind the shields, Council ships returned fire. The battle had begun. For an hour, the two fleets hammered at each other. The Void Collective tried to break through the shield network. The combined fleet focused fire on enemy ships, destroying them one by one. Ships on both sides exploded into expanding clouds of debris, but the numbers were against them. For every Void Collective ship destroyed, 2 more pressed forward. The linked shields were holding, but the power drain was enormous. "Shield strength down to 40%, Kim reported. "We cannot maintain this much longer." Park watched the tactical display. The enemy was adapting, focusing fire on individual human ships to try to break the network. It was working. The Eternal Vigil shook as multiple enemy weapons targeted it specifically. "They have identified us as a command ship," Park said. "They are trying to take us out to break the formation." On his screen, Admiral Lee was having the same thought. The enemy was too smart, too adaptable. The defensive strategy was failing. They needed something else, something the Void Collective would not expect. Lee made a decision that he had hoped he would not have to make. "All ships, this is Admiral Lee. Prepare for final protocol." Park felt his heart sink. Final protocol. The last desperate option they had planned 300 years ago. The option that required the ultimate sacrifice. "All human ships will break formation," Lee continued. "We will perform a direct assault on the enemy command carrier. Our goal is to destroy their coordination network. Without it, the Void Collective Fleet will lose cohesion. Admiral, Vexthal called out, that is suicide. You will be surrounded and destroyed. Yes, Lee agreed simply. But we will take the command carrier with us, and that will give the rest of the fleet a chance to win. He paused. This is why the Vigil was built, High Coordinator. This is why we trained for 300 years, not to live forever, but to sacrifice ourselves at the moment when it matters most. Park touched his communication system. All crew, this is Captain Park. We are about to make a final assault run. Anyone who wishes to evacuate should head to the escape pods now. I will not order anyone to stay for this. On the screens throughout the ship, crew members looked at each other. Some were third or fourth generation, born on the ship. Some had joined recently as part of crew rotations. All of them had trained their entire lives for this moment. Not a single person moved toward the escape pods. Lieutenant Kim stood at her station with tears in her eyes. Captain, the crew reports all stations manned and ready. No one is leaving. Park felt pride surge through him. Very well. All hands, battle stations. We end this now. Then something unexpected happened. Commander Zixtar's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral Lee, the Krellian fleet requests permission to join your assault. Denied, Lee said firmly. This is a suicide mission, Commander. I know, Zixtar replied. That is why we want to join you. You humans have taught us many things this past week. One lesson is that some causes are worth dying for. Protecting innocent lives is one of those causes. More voices joined the channel. Zenthari commanders, Vexian captains, officers from a dozen species, all volunteering to join the assault, all accepting that they would probably not survive. Vexthal listened to his people volunteer for death and felt something break inside him. For 300 years, humans had prepared alone. They had sacrificed alone. They had stood watch while everyone else slept. And now, at the end, they were still willing to die alone to protect everyone else. No, Vexthal said quietly. Then louder, no. This time humanity does not stand alone. He turned to his ship's captain. The harmony of spheres will join the assault. High Coordinator, you cannot, the captain objected. You are the leader of the council. Which is exactly why I must, Vexthal replied. How can I ask others to risk everything if I will not do the same? Admiral Lee was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke, and his voice carried emotion that had been hidden until now. All ships that wish to join the assault, form up on the human vessels. Everyone else, prepare to exploit the opening we create. Make this sacrifice count. 37 ships broke formation, 12 human vessels and 25 council ships. They formed a wedge with the Eternal Vigil at the point. Ahead of them, the Void Collective Command Carrier loomed like a dark moon. All ships, maximum speed, Lee ordered. Target all weapons on the command carrier. We break through or we die trying. The assault force surged forward. Behind them, the remaining fleet intensified their fire to provide covering shots. The Void Collective recognized the threat and tried to block the assault. Enemy ships swarmed around the wedge, firing from all sides. Ships began to explode. A Zenthari cruiser took a direct hit and broke apart. 2 Krellian destroyers collided with enemy vessels in deliberate ramming attacks. The human ship Eternal Watch lost its shields and took heavy damage, but kept flying. The Eternal Vigil shook constantly from impacts. Hull breaches appeared on multiple decks. Fires broke out in engineering sections, but the ship pushed forward, its weapons never stopping. We are through their outer line, Kim shouted over the noise. The command carrier is 3,000 meters ahead. Park could see it on the main screen. The Void Collective Command ship was massive, covered in quantum communication arrays. Destroying it would not stop the fleet entirely, but it would disrupt their perfect coordination. It would create chaos, and in that chaos, the remaining Council fleet could turn the battle. "All ships, concentrate fire on the command carrier's communications section," Admiral Lee ordered. His flagship was burning, but still fighting. "Pour everything into that target." The assault force opened fire with everything they had left: missiles, energy weapons, railguns, all focused on a single point. The command carrier's shields began to fail. Cracks appeared in its hull, but they were too few, too damaged. The Void Collective ships surrounded them, attacking from every angle. One by one, the assault ships began to die. The Eternal Watch exploded, taking Admiral Lee with it. 5 more ships were destroyed in the next minute. The Harmony of Spheres lost all power and began drifting, defenseless. On the Eternal Vigil, Park knew they had seconds left. "Kim, transfer all remaining power to weapons, everything. Engines, shields, life support, everything." "Sir, that will kill the ship," Kim said. "The ship is already dead," Park replied. "Let us make our death count." Power flowed from every system into the weapon arrays. The Vigil fired one final massive barrage, every weapon discharged at once, throwing so much energy at the command carrier that the Vigil itself went dark from the power drain. The weapons struck the command carrier's communications section. The damage that 37 ships had inflicted suddenly became critical. The section exploded, taking half the command ship with it. Throughout the Void Collective fleet, ships suddenly lost coordination. They stopped moving in perfect formation. They began making individual decisions instead of collective ones. Some ships continued attacking. Others tried to retreat. A few collided with each other. "It worked," Quinvera whispered from the drifting Harmony of Spheres. "By all the stars, it actually worked." The remaining Council fleet did not waste the opportunity. They surged forward, targeting the confused enemy ships. Without perfect coordination, the Void Collective's numerical advantage meant less. Individual ships could be isolated and destroyed. The battle continued for another 2 hours, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Void Collective fleet broke apart, retreating in disorganized groups. The combined fleet pursued, destroying every enemy ship they could catch. When it was over, the space was filled with debris from both sides. The Council fleet had lost 40 ships. Every single ship that had joined the final assault was either destroyed or disabled. But the Void Collective invasion force was broken. The survivors were fleeing. The galaxy was safe, at least for now. Rescue ships moved through the debris field, searching for survivors. They found the Eternal Vigil drifting without power. Its hull was broken in dozens of places. Its engines were dead. But life support had automatically reactivated on minimal power once the battle ended. Captain Park sat in his dark command chair and waited. Around him, his crew did the same. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. When rescue ships brought them back to the fleet, Park and his crew were greeted as heroes. But Park did not feel like a hero. He felt tired. So very tired. Vexthal found him in a medical bay, getting treatment for minor injuries. The High Coordinator had also survived, pulled from the Harmony of Spheres by rescue crews. "Captain Park," Vexthal said quietly, "I owe you an apology. 300 years of apologies, in fact." Park shook his head. "No apologies, High Coordinator. We did what we thought was right. We hoped that when the moment came, we would be proven right. And we hoped that others would stand with us when the proof arrived." "You were willing to sacrifice everything," Vexthal said. "Your ships, your people, your lives, for a galaxy that doubted you." "That is what it means to keep vigil," Park replied. "A guardian does not guard only those who believe in them. They guard everyone, because everyone deserves to be safe." In the days after the battle, the galaxy began to rebuild. The Eternal Vigil and the other damaged human ships were towed to repair facilities. The Galactic Council offered humanity a position of leadership, a place of honor for saving everyone. Humanity declined. "We do not want to lead," Admiral Lee's replacement said. "We want to continue our purpose." We will keep watching the deep, dark places. We will stand guard so others can live without fear. That is enough for us. The Council accepted this, though they did not fully understand. They created new treaties, new alliances. They began building their own defensive networks, learning from human experience. 6 months later, the Eternal Vigil was repaired and ready to return to service. Captain Park stood on the bridge looking at the familiar controls and screens. His crew was around him, ready to resume their mission. "Where to, Captain?" Lieutenant Kim asked. Park looked at the star map, at the vast darkness between galaxies. "Back to our vigil. Back to the watch. There are other threats out there, other enemies that we need to understand and prepare for." "And if the Council does not believe us again?" Kim asked. Park smiled slightly. "Then we prepare anyway, because that is what humans do. We see the danger. We prepare for it, and when the moment comes, we stand between the darkness and those who need protection." The Eternal Vigil turned toward the edge of space and accelerated away. Behind it, the galaxy continued living, working, dreaming. Most would forget about the ship that had saved them. That was acceptable. The vigil was not kept for glory or recognition. It was kept because someone needed to keep it. And humanity had decided long ago that they would be those someones. In the dark between stars, the 12 human ships took up their positions once more. Watching, waiting, ready. The vigil continued.
The ancient hall of the Galactic Coalition was quiet. Too quiet. The massive chamber could hold thousands of beings from across the stars, but today only a few hundred attended. Most of the younger species had stopped coming to these old meetings. They thought the ancient ones were boring. They thought the elders talked too much about the past. Elder Kratos stood at the center platform. His species was one of the oldest in the known galaxy. The Voskor had seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. They had watched countless civilizations bloom and fade. They knew things that others had forgotten. Today, the elder had important news. His long fingers moved across the holographic controls. Images appeared in the air above the platform. A small blue and green planet floated in the darkness of space. "We have found a new species," the elder said. His voice was calm but serious. "They call their world Earth. They call themselves humans." A few delegates looked up with mild interest. New species were discovered all the time. What made these humans special? The elder continued. He showed more images. Cities, machines, battles. The images showed humans fighting, always fighting. They fought with swords. They fought with guns. They fought with massive bombs that could destroy entire cities. And they were fighting each other. "These beings are dangerous," the elder warned. "Not because they are strong, not because they are smart, but because they never stop." Ambassador Gentar from the hegemony laughed. It was a harsh clicking sound. The Gentar were warriors. Their empire controlled 10,000 worlds. They had crushed 100 species who dared to resist them. "Elder, with respect, I see nothing to fear," Gentar said. "These humans fight with primitive weapons. They have not even left their moon. They waste their energy fighting among themselves. They are weak." Other delegates nodded. They agreed with Gentar. Some even smiled at the old elder. They thought he was being foolish. Scared of nothing, the elder showed more images. He showed human history. Ice ages that should have killed them, but humans survived. Diseases that should have wiped them out, but humans endured. Disasters, famines, wars. Through everything, humans kept going. "Look closely," the elder said. "These humans evolved on what they call a death world. Their planet has predators that can kill them easily. Their weather can freeze them or burn them. Their ground shakes and destroys their cities. Yet they survive. More than survive. They thrive." He showed footage of human soldiers in their wars. Humans fighting when they were outnumbered. Fighting when they were injured. Fighting when any other species would have surrendered. And sometimes, incredibly, winning. They are persistence hunters, the elder explained. Do you know what this means? On Earth there are animals faster than humans, stronger than humans, but humans hunted them by never giving up. They chased their prey for days. Days, until the prey died from exhaustion. This is what humans are. They are the species that never stops chasing. Gentar stood up. His armored body gleamed under the lights. Elder Kratos, you speak of primitive hunters. We are a galactic empire. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have ships that cross the galaxy in days. What can these humans do against us? Nothing. They are not even worth our attention. The other delegates agreed. They were bored now. They wanted to discuss trade routes and mining rights. Not listen to warnings about some primitive species on the edge of explored space. The elder looked around the chamber. He saw the dismissal in their eyes. He had lived for 600 cycles. He had seen this before. Species who thought they were invincible. Species who ignored warnings. Most of them were now just dust in the stellar wind. Very well, the elder said quietly. I have given my warning. I have shown you what I have seen. The Voskor will have no part in what comes next. We will withdraw to our home systems. We will close our borders. This caused some surprise. The Voskor had been part of the coalition for thousands of years. They had never withdrawn before. Why do you hide, old one? Gentar asked mockingly. Are you afraid of the hairless apes? The elder looked at Gentar with ancient eyes. I am not afraid of the humans themselves. I am afraid of what will happen when someone decides to test them. When someone decides these humans need to be conquered, or enslaved, or destroyed. He paused, and his next words were heavy with meaning. Because humans have a saying. They say, do not mistake kindness for weakness. And another one, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. These humans will not do nothing. Not when threatened, not when attacked. They will respond. And they will not stop responding until they win, or until they are extinct. There is no middle ground with them. The elder gathered his data and prepared to leave. At the entrance to the chamber, he turned back one last time. When the humans come to the stars, remember this day. Remember that you were warned. The humans are not invincible, but they are unstoppable. Learn the difference. It may save your species. The elder left. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Gentar laughed again. The old one has gone soft, afraid of primitives. How far the mighty have fallen. The other delegates joined in the laughter. They returned to their discussions of trade and territory. The warning was forgotten. The images of Earth were deleted from the official records. After all, why keep data about an insignificant species that posed no threat? 50 years passed. The galaxy turned. Empires grew. Wars were fought and won. And on a small blue planet on the edge of explored space, humans looked up at the stars and dreamed of going there. They built ships. They developed new engines. They trained crews. And eventually, they left their home. They went seeking new worlds, new knowledge, new friends among the stars. They went in peace. But they were ready for anything. Because humans always were. 3 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Endeavor. Admiral Zarthok's Fourth Fleet had moved deeper into what the Dominion believed was empty space. Their mission was simple. Find the human homeworld and bring these primitives under Dominion control. What they found instead changed everything. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of a star system. Sensors immediately detected signs of habitation. A rocky planet orbited close to a yellow sun. Space stations hung in orbit. Small ships moved between the planet and several moons. A human colony, Zarthok said with satisfaction. Not their main world, but it will serve as a starting point. Prepare for planetary assault. Before his fleet could move forward, something unexpected happened. Ships began launching from the planet. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. They were not military vessels. These were cargo haulers, mining ships, passenger transports, and construction craft. Anything that could fly was rising to meet the Dominion fleet. The tactical officer studied the readings. Sir, these vessels are not warships. They appear to be civilian craft that have been hastily armed. Zarthok laughed. The fools are sending their cargo ships against us? This will be a massacre. All ships weapons free. Destroy anything that comes within range. The battle began. The Dominion warships opened fire with devastating efficiency. Plasma beams and missiles tore through the civilian fleet. Ships exploded left and right. Debris filled the space between the planet and the Dominion position. But the humans did not run. They did not surrender. Instead, they attacked with a fury that shocked the Dominion forces. A massive cargo hauler, its hull already burning, accelerated directly toward a Dominion cruiser. The cruiser tried to evade, but the freighter was too close. The two ships collided in a tremendous explosion. Both were destroyed. Mining ships designed to cut through asteroids focused their industrial lasers on Dominion destroyers. The beams were not military grade, but they were powerful enough to slice through armor if given enough time. Several destroyers found themselves with their engines disabled, floating helplessly. Passenger transports, filled with colonists who refused to evacuate, launched escape pods not away from the battle but toward Dominion ships. Each pod was packed with improvised explosives. When they struck enemy vessels, the explosions were small, but dozens of impacts added up. What madness is this? Zarthok demanded. Why do they not retreat? The communications officer had intercepted human transmissions. Her voice was shaken as she translated. Sir, they are saying, remember the endeavor. Make them pay for every kilometer. Buy time for the others. Others? Zarthok repeated. What others? His answer came when a human construction ship, normally used to build space stations, deployed a net of metal cables around a Dominion battleship. The cables tangled in the ship's maneuvering thrusters. As the battleship tried to break free, the construction ship detonated its entire fuel supply. The explosion was massive, crippling the battleship. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Dominion Fourth Fleet had superior weapons, better armor, and more ships. But the humans fought with desperate creativity. They used debris fields as cover. They coordinated attacks in ways that seemed impossible for civilian crews. They refused to surrender even when their ships were crippled and burning. By the time the last human ship was destroyed, Zarthok's fleet had lost 60 warships. 60. Against a force of civilians in converted cargo vessels. The admiral stood on his bridge, staring at the casualty reports in disbelief. In 200 years of command, he had never lost so many ships in a single engagement. And against what? Farmers and miners who turned their tools into weapons? Sir, the tactical officer said quietly, we are detecting more human colonies. They appear to be evacuating. Ships are leaving their systems and heading away from us, cowards, Zarthok spat. They run while their fellows die. I do not think they are running, sir. I think they are buying time. The colonists we just fought knew they could not win, but they fought anyway. They delayed us, and now the other colonies are using that time to prepare. Zarthok turned to face his officer. Prepare for what? We have just proven that even armed civilians cannot stand against us. The officer did not answer. He was listening to another intercepted transmission. Finally, he looked up at the admiral with fear in his eyes. Sir, we just received this message. It was broadcast from the colony we just destroyed, sent as the last ship fell. It says you wanted a war? You just picked a fight with Earth's kids. Wait until our parents come home. Zarthok felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Parents? What did that mean? Were these colonies not the human military? Were they not even defended by soldiers? For the first time in his long career, Admiral Zarthok wondered if he had made a mistake, but pride would not let him admit it. He had come too far. The Dominion had never backed down from a primitive species, and they would not start now. Continue the advance, he ordered. Find more colonies. Crush them. We will show these humans that the Dominion cannot be stopped by suicide tactics and desperate bravery. Over the next 2 months, the Fourth Fleet pushed deeper into human colonial space. They found more colonies. Each one fought with the same desperate ferocity. Civilians armed with whatever they could find. Old mining equipment turned into weapons. Cargo ships used as battering rams. Every single colony fought to the death. The Dominion won every battle. But the victories came at a terrible cost. The Fourth Fleet, which had started with 10,000 ships, was down to 8,000. 2,000 warships destroyed by farmers, miners, and merchants. Zarthok sent regular reports back to the Dominion Council. He assured them that resistance was breaking. He claimed the humans were running out of colonies to defend. He insisted that final victory was near. But privately, on the quiet of his command deck late at night, Zarthok studied the tactical data and felt doubt growing in his heart. These were not soldiers he was fighting. These were colonists. And if colonists could do this much damage, what would happen when the real human military arrived? That question would be answered soon enough. The Fourth Fleet arrived at the Proxima system, humanity's second-largest settlement. Long-range sensors showed a thriving colony, orbital stations, mining operations on 3 moons, and thousands of civilian ships moving through the system. Admiral Zarthok expected another desperate civilian defense. What he found waiting for him was different. A single ship hung in space between the colony and the approaching Dominion fleet. It was larger than the civilian vessels they had fought before, but still small compared to a Dominion battleship. The hull was painted dark blue with white markings. On its side, large letters spelled out, USC Valkyrie. One ship? Zarthok said incredulously. They send one ship to defend an entire colony? Sir, the ship is broadcasting on all channels. They are requesting communication. Let them speak. I want to hear what excuse they offer before we destroy them. The screen flickered to life. A human woman appeared wearing a crisp blue uniform. Her expression was calm, but her eyes were hard. Behind her, the bridge of her ship was visible. It looked professional, organized, nothing like the makeshift command centers of the civilian vessels. I am Commander Patricia O'Neill of the United Earth System, Colonial Security Force. I speak on behalf of the government of Earth and her colonies. Zarthok waved a dismissive claw. Another human come to die uselessly. Your colonies have been interesting target practice, but this charade ends now. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Commander O'Neill's expression did not change. Admiral Zarthok, you have attacked our exploration vessel without provocation. You have murdered our civilians. You have destroyed 12 colonies. These are acts of war and crimes against sapient beings. You have 3 hours to withdraw your fleet beyond our agreed border and surrender yourself and your command staff for War Crimes Tribunal. This is your only warning. Silence fell across the bridge. Several officers looked at each other in shock. This human, alone in a single ship facing 10,000 warships, was demanding their surrender. Zarthok's laugh echoed through the command deck. You are insane. I have 8,000 warships. You have one. What makes you think you can threaten me? I am not threatening you, Admiral. I am warning you. There is a difference. You attacked civilians. You murdered explorers. You ignored every opportunity for peace. You forced this war. But even now at this late hour, Earth offers you mercy. Withdraw. Surrender. Face justice. If you refuse, what happens next is on your hands. And what exactly will happen? Zarthok asked mockingly. Will your one ship destroy my fleet? O'Neill leaned forward slightly. Admiral, you have been fighting colonists. Farmers, miners, merchants, brave people, yes, but civilians nonetheless. I am Earth System Colonial Security. We are not the military, Admiral. We are the police. And you just ignored an officer of the law. The real army hasn't even arrived yet. Zarthok had heard enough. Police? This arrogant human thought her people had police in space? It was absurd. He would show her the price of defiance, weapons free. All ships target that destroyer. Turn it into dust. The Valkyrie moved before the first shots were fired. Its engines flared bright blue and the ship accelerated with speed that shocked the Dominion sensors. It was fast. Impossibly fast for a ship of its size. Weapons fire filled space. Hundreds of plasma beams and missiles streaked toward the small human ship. The Valkyrie twisted and turned, evading with precision that seemed almost impossible. Its point defense systems shot down missiles with perfect accuracy. When plasma beams came too close, shimmering energy barriers appeared around the ship, deflecting the worst of the impacts. Then the Valkyrie returned fire. Magnetic rails along its hull glowed white-hot. Solid metal projectiles, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, tore through space. The first shot struck a Dominion cruiser directly in its command section. The kinetic impact was devastating. The cruiser broke in half, its reactor exploding seconds later. The Valkyrie did not slow down. It dove into the Dominion formation like a predator among prey. Its railguns fired with mechanical precision. Every shot found a target. Every target was destroyed or crippled. The Dominion fleet tried to respond, but the human ship was too fast, too agile. It moved through their formations, destroying ships with surgical efficiency. Cruisers exploded. Destroyers lost power. Even a battleship found itself crippled when the Valkyrie targeted its engine core. How is one ship doing this? Someone on the bridge whispered. Zarthok had no answer. He watched as his fleet struggled to even hit the human vessel, while it systematically destroyed his ships one after another. This was not a desperate civilian defense. This was professional military action, precise, efficient, deadly. The battle lasted 2 hours. By the end, 40 Dominion ships were destroyed or disabled. The Valkyrie's shields were failing, its armor was breached in several places, and its weapons were running low on ammunition, but it had fought 8,000 ships, alone, and made them bleed. Finally, overwhelmed by sheer numbers, the Valkyrie's shields collapsed. A missile struck its engine section. Another hit the command deck. The ship began to break apart. Commander O'Neill's face appeared on the screen one last time. Blood ran down her forehead and sparks flew from damaged systems behind her. "You had your chance, Admiral," she said quietly. "We offered you peace. We offered you mercy. You chose war. Remember that when they arrive." The real army hasn't even arrived yet. The transmission cut off. The Valkyrie exploded in a ball of white fire. Zarthok sat in his command chair staring at the debris field. 40 ships. One human destroyer, outgunned 8,000 to 1, had destroyed 40 of his vessels before falling, and it was just the police. Not even the military. The tactical officer's voice was shaken.
"Sir, we are detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the system."
Multiple wormholes opening. "How many?" Zarthok asked. The officer checked his readings twice before answering. "Sir, I count 300 wormhole signatures. No, 400. Still increasing." Zarthok stood slowly. He walked to the main viewing screen and watched as hundreds of tiers in space-time appeared at the system's edge. And through each one, warships began to emerge. Real warships, massive battle carriers, destroyer squadrons, fighter wings that numbered in the thousands. The real army had arrived. The Earth Defense Navy emerged from their wormholes in perfect formation. 5 battle groups, each centered around a massive carrier. Destroyer screens fanned out in protective patterns. Fighter wings launched and formed up in tight squadrons. Everything moved with precision that spoke of years of training and discipline. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Zarthok watched the human fleet take up positions. His tactical displays showed the numbers clearly. The humans had brought about 800 warships to face his 8,000. The Dominion still had a 10-to-1 advantage in numbers, but the memory of the Valkyrie, one ship against thousands, made him hesitate. A communication request came from the human fleet. Zarthok accepted it. A human male appeared on screen. He was older than the other humans Zarthok had seen, with gray hair and hard eyes. His uniform was more elaborate, covered in symbols of rank and achievement. Behind him, the command bridge was larger, more sophisticated, filled with officers working at their stations. "I am Fleet Admiral James Harding, Supreme Commander of the Earth Defense Navy. You are Admiral Zarthok, correct?" "I am," Zarthok replied, trying to sound confident. "And you are making a mistake, Admiral. You are outnumbered 10 to 1. Surrender now and I will be merciful." Harding's expression did not change. "Admiral Zarthok, you are under arrest for war crimes. The charges include the murder of unarmed explorers, the destruction of civilian colonies, and refusing lawful surrender demands. You and your command staff will stand trial before an international tribunal. Your ships and crew will be detained as prisoners of war. These are my terms. You have 10 minutes to comply." Zarthok's anger flared. "You speak of crimes? You speak of law? I am the law here. The Dominion is the supreme power in this galaxy. We have conquered 1,000 species. What makes you think you can dictate terms to me?" "Because you killed our people," Harding said quietly. "You murdered Captain Chen and her crew. They were peaceful explorers. You murdered colonists, farmers, children. You destroyed the Valkyrie after Commander O'Neill gave you every chance to surrender. You have committed acts that violate every principle of civilized warfare, and now you will answer for those crimes." "I will answer to no one," Zarthok roared. "I have 8,000 ships. Your fleet will be crushed." Harding sighed. "So be it. You have chosen your path. May whatever gods you worship have mercy on you, because we will not. All ships weapons free. Show them what happens when you murder our families." The battle began with a coordinated strike that left Zarthok's tactical officers gasping. Every human ship fired at precisely the same moment. Their targeting was perfect. Railgun rounds, missiles, and energy beams all converged on selected Dominion vessels. 20 Dominion ships exploded in the first volley. 20 more lost power. The human fleet did not pause. They moved forward, their formation shifting and flowing like a living thing. Fighter wings swept through Dominion formations, destroying smaller vessels and disabling larger ones. The Dominion fleet tried to respond with overwhelming firepower. Thousands of weapons fired at once, filling space with deadly energy. But the human ships had shields unlike anything the Dominion had seen. Kinetic barriers deflected solid rounds. Energy screens absorbed plasma fire. And when a shield failed, the ship's armor was thick enough to take multiple hits. What terrified Zarthok most was the coordination. Every human ship knew where every other ship was. They never fired on each other. They never blocked each other's shots. Their movements were synchronized with mathematical precision. They are using artificial intelligence, his tactical officer reported. Some kind of coordinated targeting system. Every ship shares data instantly. They know where we are before we move. Zarthok watched as his fleet, larger and more numerous, was slowly torn apart by the smaller but vastly superior human force. The humans used tactics he had never seen. They would concentrate fire on a single ship, destroy it completely, then move to the next target before his forces could respond. When Dominion ships tried to close to boarding range, human destroyers would appear from unexpected angles, cutting off the attack. When the Dominion tried to spread out, human carriers would launch fighter waves that picked off isolated vessels. The battle lasted 6 hours. By the end, 3,000 Dominion ships were destroyed or crippled. The human fleet had lost 80 vessels. Zarthok sat in his command chair staring at the casualty reports. 3,000 ships, nearly 40% of his fleet, gone, against a force 1/10 his size. A communication came from Admiral Harding. "Admiral Zarthok, your fleet is broken. You have lost this battle. Surrender now and no more of your people need to die." Zarthok looked around his bridge. His officers were exhausted, shocked, defeated. He had never retreated in 200 years of command. He had never surrendered, but he had also never faced an enemy like this. "No," he said quietly, "I will not surrender." All remaining ships jumped to faster than light travel. "We retreat to Dominion space." The human fleet did not pursue. They let the Dominion survivors escape. As Zarthok's flagship jumped away, he took one last look at the battlefield. Thousands of his ships floated as dead hulks, and the human fleet sat there barely damaged, like hunters watching wounded prey flee. In his final moments before the jump, Zarthok heard Admiral Harding's last transmission. "Run back to your masters, Admiral. Tell them what happened here. Tell them that humanity gave you every chance for peace. And tell them that if the Dominion ever threatens our people again, we will not stop at your frontier. We will bring this war to your homeworlds. We will show you what happens when you push a patient people too far." The jump drive engaged. The stars blurred and shifted. Admiral Zarthok fled back to Dominion space, carrying news of a defeat so complete, so devastating, that it would shake the Empire to its core. Behind him, the Earth Defense Navy remained in the Proxima system. They began recovery operations, searching for survivors from both sides. They treated Dominion prisoners with the same medical care they gave their own wounded. They followed rules of war that the Dominion had never heard of, and they waited. Because they knew the Dominion would not accept this defeat. They knew a larger force would come, and when it did, humanity would be ready. The war had only just begun. The Dominion Council chamber was in chaos. Empress Zaldara sat on her throne, ancient and terrible, while council members shouted at each other across the vast hall. The report from Admiral Zarthok had shocked them all. 3,000 ships lost, destroyed by a primitive species from a single star system. It was impossible. It had to be a lie, an exaggeration. But the data logs did not lie. The tactical recordings showed everything. Ambassador Kelton stood before the council, his voice calm despite the turmoil around him. "I warned you. I told you we knew nothing about these humans. We should have investigated before we attacked." A military commander slammed his fist on the table. "It was a fluke. They caught us by surprise. Next time we will be ready." "It was not a fluke," Kelton said quietly. "It was superior technology, superior tactics, and superior training. The humans fought with precision we have never seen. They coordinated their entire fleet as if it were a single organism." Empress Zaldara raised a hand and silence fell. "Ambassador Kelton, you have studied these humans. What do we know about them?" Kelton activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, rotating slowly. This is their homeworld. It is what we call a death world. Murmurs ran through the council. Death worlds were rare. Planets where life was so dangerous, so competitive, that the species that emerged were invariably strong and aggressive. Earth has gravity 1.2 times the galactic standard. Its weather includes storms that can destroy cities. The planet has experienced 5 major extinction events.
And yet life persisted.
Humans evolved as apex predators on a world that was constantly trying to kill them. The display shifted to show images from human history. Battles, wars, weapons of terrible power. But the worst part is not the planet. The worst part is what humans did to themselves. For thousands of years they fought each other, nation against nation, tribe against tribe. They invented weapons capable of destroying their entire planet. They came within moments of wiping out their own species multiple times. Then why are they still alive? Someone asked. Because they learned, Kelton said. They stopped fighting each other. They united. They took all that experience from thousands of years of warfare and turned it into military doctrine. Every tactic they used against us was developed fighting themselves. They know war better than any species in the galaxy because they have been at war for their entire existence. The council sat in stunned silence. Finally, the military commander spoke. Then we send everything. We deploy the 2nd, 5th, and 7th fleets, 30,000 ships. We crush them with overwhelming force. Empress Zaldara nodded slowly. Do it. But Ambassador Kelton, you will continue your research. I want to know everything about these humans. How they think. How they fight. What they fear. Over the next 6 months, 3 Dominion fleets moved into human space. 30,000 warships, the largest force the Dominion had assembled in centuries. And they found that humanity had been preparing. Every human system was fortified. Orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Minefields surrounded key locations. Hidden facilities on asteroids and moons provided ambush points. The Earth Defense Navy had used the time since the first battle to turn their territory into a fortress. The battles were brutal. The Dominion won victories through sheer numbers, but each victory cost them dearly. For every human ship destroyed, they lost 10 of their own. The cost ratios were unsustainable. Ambassador Kelton continued his research, and what he found terrified him. He discovered that humans had concepts like war crimes and rules of engagement. They had actual laws about how to conduct warfare. They would not use certain weapons because they considered them too inhumane. They treated prisoners according to strict guidelines. The Dominion had none of these concepts. When they fought to exterminate. There were no rules, no mercy. Total warfare was the only kind they knew. But humans? They were holding back. Kelton found records of human weapons they were not using. Biological weapons that could sterilize entire planets. Nuclear weapons that could crack continents. Self-replicating machines that could consume all matter in a star system. And something called antimatter. Energy so powerful that a small amount could destroy a fleet. Humans had all of these weapons. They had used them on themselves in their ancient past. They had nearly destroyed their world with them. And now, facing an alien enemy, they were choosing not to use them. Kelton rushed to the council with his findings. They are fighting with restraint. They could exterminate us, but they are holding back. We must sue for peace immediately. The council dismissed him. Restraint is weakness, the military commander declared. They hold back because they fear us. We press the attack! But Kelton had also intercepted human communications. He had heard their soldiers talking. He had listened to their commanders. And he understood the truth. Humans were not holding back out of weakness. They were holding back because they had seen where total war led. They had nearly destroyed themselves with it. They remembered the horror of their own capacity for destruction. And they had chosen to be better. That restraint was not weakness. It was the most terrifying thing about them, because it meant they could unleash total war if they chose to. They simply preferred not to. The war continued for 6 months. The Dominion lost battle after battle. The 2nd Fleet was destroyed. The 5th Fleet retreated with massive casualties. The 7th Fleet barely escaped complete annihilation. In total, the Dominion had lost 60,000 ships. They had lost 14 star systems, and humanity had barely moved from defensive positions. They had not counterattacked. They had not invaded Dominion space. They had simply held their ground and made the Dominion pay for every light year. The Dominion Council convened an emergency session. The military commanders who had been so confident now sat in silence. Empress Zaldara looked older than her 1,000 years. "Ambassador Keltan," she said quietly. "What do you recommend?" Keltan stood slowly. "We must surrender immediately, unconditionally, before they decide that restraint is no longer an option." "Surrender?" The council member gasped. "The Dominion has never surrendered." "Then we will be the first," Keltan said. "Because the alternative is extinction. Do you understand? We have been fighting their defensive forces. We have been fighting soldiers who are following rules of engagement. We have been facing an enemy who is trying not to kill us. What happens when we force them to stop trying?" The council sat in silence, finally understanding the truth. They had picked a fight with a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war, a species that had weapons capable of ending all life, a species that had chosen mercy over massacre. And that mercy could not last forever. The vote was unanimous. Ambassador Keltan was authorized to make contact with Earth and negotiate a surrender. As he left the council chamber to prepare his transmission, he could only hope that humanity would accept. Because if they refused, if they decided that the Dominion needed to be eliminated as a threat, nothing would stop them. The real question was not whether the Dominion could win. The question was whether humanity would let them survive. 1 year after the destruction of the UESS Endeavour, the sky above the Dominion capital world turned dark with ships. Not Dominion ships. Human ships. Thousands of them. The Terran Alliance Expeditionary Force had arrived. Empress Zaldara stood in the council chamber watching the displays in numb shock. She had thought the Earth Defense Navy was formidable. She had been wrong. That had just been humanity's home guard. The forces that stayed behind to protect their core worlds. This fleet was something else entirely. 400,000 warships. 50 billion soldiers. Weapons platforms that made the Dominion's greatest vessels look like children's toys. And all of it had been hidden, scattered across deep space, exploring and colonizing systems the Dominion had never even detected. A communication request came through. Zaldara accepted it with trembling hands. Fleet Admiral James Harding appeared on the screen. Behind him stood other officers, their uniforms decorated with symbols of rank and achievement. The command bridge was vast, filled with hundreds of stations all working in perfect coordination. Empress Zaldara, "I am Fleet Admiral James Harding of the Terran Alliance Expeditionary Force. We received Ambassador Keltan's request for peace negotiations. We have considered your offer. These are our terms." Harding's voice was calm but firm. "First, the Galactic Dominion will acknowledge the sovereignty of all species. No more forced integration. No more conquest. Every species has the right to choose their own path. Second, the Dominion military will be reduced by 70%. Your remaining forces will be limited to defensive operations only. Humanity will monitor your compliance. Third, the Dominion will pay reparations to Earth for the lives lost and colonies destroyed. The amount will be determined by an independent tribunal. Fourth, Admiral Zarthok and his senior command staff will be tried for war crimes. They will receive a fair trial. They will have legal representation, but they will answer for their actions. Fifth, all species currently under Dominion rule will be given the choice to remain or seek independence. Humanity will support any species that chooses freedom." Zaldara listened to the terms, her ancient heart heavy. These were not the terms of extermination. They were not even particularly harsh, but they meant the end of the Dominion as it had existed for 12,000 years. "And if we refuse?" she asked quietly. Harding's expression grew grave. "Then we will show you what we are truly capable of. Everything you have seen so far has been defensive warfare. We fought according to the rules of engagement. We used conventional weapons. We targeted military assets only. We treated your prisoners with respect." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "If you force us to continue this war, we will not hold back anymore. We will use weapons we have kept locked away for centuries. We will show you why humanity nearly destroyed itself. And when we are done, the Dominion will not exist. Not as an empire. Not as a species. Not even as a memory." Behind Harding, a tactical officer activated a display. Images appeared showing human weapons. Planet-killer missiles. Antimatter bombs. Biological weapons. Self-replicating war machines. And other things. Terrible things that the Dominion had no names for. "We have these weapons," Harding said. "We built them. We tested them. We know exactly what they can do because we use them on ourselves. And we swore never to use them again. But if you leave us no choice, if you force us to choose between our survival and our principles, we will choose survival. And you will learn why the most dangerous species in the galaxy is the one that knows how to destroy itself. The council chamber was silent. Every member understood the truth now. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. They had conquered primitive species. They had crushed rivals. They had built an empire on fear and force, but humanity was different. Humanity had conquered themselves first. They had fought through their own worst instincts and emerged as something new. A species that preferred peace but was prepared for war. A species that chose mercy but kept their weapons sharp. Empress Zaldara stood slowly. Admiral Harding, on behalf of the Galactic Dominion, I accept your terms unconditionally. Harding nodded. A wise decision, Empress. Ambassador Kelton will coordinate the details of the treaty. We will begin the trial proceedings for Admiral Zarthok within the month, and we will start the process of allowing subjugated species to choose their own destiny. 3 months later, the treaty was signed on a neutral space station. Representatives from hundreds of species attended. The Dominion, once the supreme power in the galaxy, was reduced to just another member state in a new alliance. At the ceremony, a Dominion counselor approached Admiral Harding. The counselor's expression was one of confusion and curiosity. Admiral, I must ask, why did you not destroy us? You clearly had the power. You could have wiped out the Dominion completely. Why show mercy? Harding looked out at the stars through the station's viewing port. Because we have seen where that path leads. For thousands of years, humanity fought itself. Nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We came within moments of extinction more times than I can count. He turned back to the counselor. We learned something from all that suffering. We learned that the strongest victory is not the one that destroys your enemy. It is the one that makes them your friend. We learned that the best way to ensure peace is not through fear but through respect. The counselor was quiet for a moment. You could have conquered us. Instead, you freed us. I do not understand. That is the difference between us, Harding said gently. The Dominion conquered others. Humanity conquered itself. We defeated our own worst impulses. We learned to choose cooperation over domination. And once you learn that lesson, truly learn it, you cannot go back. You can never again justify needless destruction. You can never again choose cruelty when kindness is possible. He smiled slightly. Besides, the galaxy is a dangerous place. There are threats out there we have not even discovered yet. Better to have friends than enemies when those threats arrive. Later that day, Ambassador Kelton gave a speech to the newly reformed Galactic Council. He spoke of the lessons learned from the war. He spoke of the mistakes the Dominion had made. And he spoke of the future. We thought we ruled the galaxy, he said. We thought our empire was supreme. Then we met a species that had already defeated the only enemy that ever mattered. They defeated themselves. They conquered their own capacity for destruction and emerged as something better. He looked around at the assembled representatives. We are lucky they are merciful. We are lucky they chose peace. Because make no mistake, if humanity had chosen differently, none of us would be here today. The galaxy learned an important lesson. Never mistake humanity's desire for peace as inability for war. Never assume that restraint means weakness. And never, ever forget that when humans fight, they do not just want to win. They want to make sure you never forget the lesson. 5 years after the treaty, the Terran Expeditionary Force had become the peacekeeping arm of the new Galactic Alliance. Human ships patrolled former Dominion space, protecting weaker species from aggression. Human technology was shared freely with allies. Human medicine saved billions of lives, and humanity continued to explore, to learn, to grow. But they kept their weapons sharp. They maintained their military readiness, because they understood something that the Dominion never had. Peace was not the absence of the ability to make war. Peace was the choice to not make war when you could, and that choice, made every day by every human, was what made them truly formidable. Admiral Harding retired to Earth, returning to the home world he had left decades ago. On his last day in uniform, a young officer asked him what he was most proud of in his long career. Harding thought for a long moment. I am proud that we won the war, but I am more proud of how we won. We could have exterminated the Dominion. We chose not to. We proved that humanity had finally learned to be better than our worst instincts. That is the real victory. Not conquering others, but conquering ourselves. The young officer nodded, understanding. And if they had not surrendered? If they had forced us to use those weapons, Harding's eyes grew distant. Then we would have. Because we protect our own. We chose mercy, but never mistake that for weakness. If pushed far enough, humanity will do what is necessary. We just prefer not to. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not invincible, but they were patient, prepared, and principled. They would help those who asked. They would defend those who needed it. And they would destroy those who left them no choice. The real army had arrived. And the galaxy was better for it.